Good morning to all of you. In previous lectures, we have seen certain basics of homeopathic mathematics. Today, we are going to learn about science and philosophy of homeopathic mathematics. In the previous lectures, I have also told you that homeopathic mathematics is not only symptoms of drug, or it is not only a compilation of the various symptoms, or it is also not a compilation of pathogenetic effect of various drugs on the healthy human being. It is beyond that collection, it is beyond that pathogenetic effect. There is certain basic philosophy is behind all this mathematics, and that is nothing but the science and philosophy of mathematics that we will see today. Now, why this topic is important, that we will see in the objective. Now, I also wondered why this topic is in your syllabus, but then I have given a thought process over it, and I have come out with certain objectives of this topic. So, objective is exam oriented objective purely. It is very clear that it can be asked as a long question. Explain science and philosophy of homeopathic mathematics for 10 marks, or it could be write short note and short note on science of mathematics, write short note on philosophy of homeopathic mathematics, and lastly, obviously, the oral part, where you will be asked about two questions related with this science and philosophy. And according to me, if you are not aware of the science and philosophy, and you have memorized most of your mathematics, it will be not useful. Every student must know this science and philosophy of mathematics, and there are few academic objectives behind this topic. That if you learn this, if you understand the science and philosophy of homeopathic mathematics, you will come to know what is the foundation, what is the sound philosophical, what is the sound scientific foundation of homeopathic mathematics, and in your further years, in your professional career, so many time, the time will come that various physicians from other pathies, other medicine faculty will contradict you. How is this? How is this your mathematics? There is no logic, there is no science in that. It is just a mere empty speculation, or it is just a mere hypothesis. So at that time, if you have a clear grasp over this foundation topic, you will be able to answer to them, and you will be also able to understand this topic in much detail. Then, knowing this science and philosophy, it will help you in study of homeopathic mathematics. Uh, there is a huge list of medicines in your syllabus, so it might not be possible that all of the drugs can be taught because of this adverse condition. So it have to be, sometimes you will have to carry on your own study of certain small drugs. So at that time, at that study, the science and philosophy will help you. And once you understand the science and philosophy of homeopathic mathematics, the application of this homeopathic mathematics will become again more easy. And then we'll first see what is the point in the homeopathic mathematics which gives evidence to call this homeopathic mathematics as a science. So when we compare any science, or when we study attributes of science, any science is based upon certain solid principles, like that the science has a certain laws, that science has certain logic, that science has certain procedure, it has certain mechanism, and the characteristic feature of science is that whatever you experiment you carry, it is to be will be repeated again and again.
What? पागल है मेरा तो दिमाग में है पूरा
ये तो लगे थोड़ा लास्ट तो लगे
तू पागल है इसका नालायक का काम है कोई लेक्चर चालू आहे ना
हो ना मग लगेच देतो ना एवढा लागतो ऐका ना एवढा का नंतर लागतं
So every science has its laws, its logic, it has certain standardized procedure, it has its own mechanism, and its results will be repeated in all the circumstances, and it will again have some precision in it. And if these 5 points are fulfilled, then one can say that this homeopathic materia medica is a science. So we'll see this points into much detail one by one. So we'll first see what is the laws and logic behind the homeopathic materia medica. So in the previous lecture, I have just shortly explained you what are the laws which are behind the science of homeopathic materia medica. One is the law of similar. So by the time you must have knowing what is this law of similar, which is the backbone, which is the main pillar of homeopathy. Now, once you understand science and philosophy of homeopathic materia medica, you will find that it is nothing but organon. But this study is with the perspective of homeopathic materia medica. So it is behind this science there are two important laws. One is a law of similar. Now you must be knowing this law of similar very well thoroughly. The medicines which are able to create certain diseases, the same medicine has a capacity to give relief to these elements or to these diseases, and accordingly it is stated that similia similibus curenta. So whatever drug you study, whatever drug whichever year you study, yes, behind that every drug there is a law similar, and there is one more law, that is therapeutic law of nature. So it is not only the law of similar is going to work, this therapeutic law of nature, which also says that a stronger or a weaker dynamic affection will be replaced by a stronger dynamic affection. Now, how it works in the drug proving? Now, in a drug proving, unless you give a stronger dynamic force, every time body will resist this artificial drugs or alterations produced by this artificial drug, because body has its own susceptibility, body has its own adaptive mechanism, and unless you give a drug artificially which is having stronger capacity than that of body's own defense mechanism, it will not produce any kind of alterations in the state of health. That is, it will not produce any symptoms after using the medicine. Then there are certain, there is logic also behind this science of homeopathic materia medica, and that logic is deductive logic and inductive logic. Now, what is it? Logic. Logic means a science of reasoning. Whatever you are proposing, whatever hypothesis you are proposing, there must be certain logic. There must be certain reasoning behind this science. And in this homeopathic materia medica, the science is provided by two logics, that is deductive logic and inductive logic. So you know what is deductive logic and inductive logic. It is the science of reasoning on which our homeopathy is based. Similarly, this has its implementation also in the field of homeopathic materia medica. Then one more important aspect of any science is that science follows the standardized procedure. Now, any human being on this earth have to experiment with related to science. He has to follow certain procedure. So, what is the procedure in our homeopathic materia medica? The procedure is drug proving on healthy human being, and this procedure is not a haphazard procedure. This procedure is described in detail in organ of medicine, and you have also studied how this drug proving is conducted in homeopathic pharmacy. And this procedure, you might feel that this is old procedure in the 19th century, but there is a research council in homeopathy. It is called as Central Council of Research in Homeopathy. That council is responsible for development of homeopathy various researches, and the one important research is addition of new drugs or proving of new drugs. So this 20th century organization also has its own standardized procedure for development of homeopathic materia medica. So till now we have seen that this homeopathic materia medica have its laws, it has its logic, it has its procedure, and therefore we call definitely that this homeopathic materia medica has definitely science behind it. Then there are certain mechanisms which are followed uniformly throughout the process of development of materia medica, and this mechanism we have also seen in the previous few lectures under the heading of how the homeopathic materia medica is constructed. So, what is the mechanism of this homeopathic materia medica? How the materia medica is evolved? It goes through certain standardized mechanism. The first mechanism is data collection. So data is nothing but in homeopathic materia medica is a symptoms, alterations in the health produced in healthy human being by administration of certain drug substances. So what is that standardized mechanism of development of homeopathic materia medica? Is symptom collection, symptom presentation, symptom verification, and after few years, symptom addition. So whenever any new drug comes in the materia medica, it has to follow this specific mechanism. Otherwise, it will not be included in homeopathic materia medica. And whatever medicines which were proved since the time of Hahnemann to the time of Boning-Hussain, Kane, Dr. Starr, Dr. Clark, Boger, all these great stalwarts has followed the same mechanism of construction of homeopathic materia medica or of evolution of materia medica. And there is no difference in this mechanism. And as any science do not allow any variations in the mechanisms, any variations in the experiment. All these steps of construction of homeopathic materia medica is standardized, and every time it has to go through this data collection. Now, this data collection is nothing but the collection of daybook, then its further analysis and rearrangement of these symptoms recorded in the data and symptom collected, and data presentation means all it is analyzed, it is graded, and it is rearranged under the various headings. That is data or symptom presentation. Then this what is mentioned under the various anatomical parts is further clinically verified, and then again it is just like again reconsolidating the experiments or confirming the various sensations, various symptoms given by prover. And lastly, after a few years, we also can add certain new symptoms by the mechanism of clinical proving or by the mechanism of clinical experience. And this mechanism is continuously going on throughout the centuries together, and that is the reason the homeopathic materia medica is so foolproof, and there is no challenge to this science of homeopathic materia medica. Then one more feature of science is that the experiments which are been conducted and the conclusions which are drawn from these experiments need to be repeated in all environment. So if we see our drug proving experiments, all these drug proving experiments are conducted throughout the world. It is conducted in America, it is conducted in Europe, it is conducted in Germany, it is conducted in India. So all over the world, the result of administration of dynamic, stronger drug in a healthy human being, it is the same. It leads to certain alterations in the state of health, and it is repeatable in all environment. The same result is there, and the results which are there, it is also felt on all human beings. All human beings of both the sexes. It also includes the transgender sex. In the previous, there was no concept of this transgender, but nowadays it is a new concept of transgender. But even if you give homeopathic medicines to this transgender peoples, they will also develop the symptoms after taking the drug. And this experiment of drug proving is equally replicable, and it is equally felt by the prover of different age group, right from prover of age of months to the prover of age of 80 or 90. You must be knowing that Hahnemann has also proved drugs on himself even at the age of 80 years. And because of certain scientific reason, we may not include the very small children in our drug proving experiment, but if it is allowed, it will also have the same result. So this is also the evidence which is going in the favor of homeopathic materia medica, and we can conclusively say that yes, homeopathic materia medica is definitely science. It is not a mere hypothesis, or it is not a mere empty speculation which is been derived by Dr. Samuel Hahnemann on the basis of the experiment of China. China. Then one more feature of this science of homeopathic materia medica is the precision. Now, precision means the accuracy. Now, science is well known for its precision, that the chances of error has to be minimized. The more is the chances of error, it is not called as a science. It is just called as some some hits or lucky hits. So this homeopathic materia medica science is a very precise science, and in where we can see this preciseness of homeopathic materia medica, that we can see this preciseness of homeopathic materia medica in the application of homeopathic materia medica. So previously we have seen that the homeopathic materia medica is based on the law of similars. That means it produces certain alteration, and if you give the same drug to a diseased person, it will relieve the symptoms of that specific person. For example, again we will go back to the experiment of China. If China is given to the healthy human being, it will produce symptoms like chills and fever in a healthy human being, and once it is discontinued, the chills and fevers will subside automatically. And if tomorrow a diseased person comes with the same symptoms of chills and fever, and if we give China, or it is also called as Syncona, to that sick person, it will definitely relieve the symptoms, and it will substantiate the law of similar also in the application. So as this law of similar, as this homeopathic materia medica can be precisely applied to the deceased human being, we can also say it is a science. And this application of this homeopathic materia medica results into the cure, and therefore it is also a science. Now the cure is defined by Hahnemann India for the number 2. So how that cure, there are certain criteria are given for that cure. That is, it should be gentle, it should be mild, it should be based on comprehensible principle. Similarly, this precision is also seen in giving relief to not only single patient, centuries together. Various homeopathic physicians are applying this science of homeopathic materia medica and able to cure so many patients. And these experiments nowadays, there are homeopathic drugs are on the basis of the symptoms given in the homeopathic materia medica. They are also applicable to certain animals. There are so many homeopathic doctors who are nowadays treating the animals with homeopathic medicine, and recently the field of administration of homeopathic medicine to the various plants is also open. So all these points substantiates, all these points clearly helps us in understanding that yes, homeopathic materia medica is a science and it is not empty speculation. Then we'll see the another part of this lecture is that how homeopathic materia medica is philosophy, or what is the philosophy behind the homeopathic materia medica. Now, to understand the philosophy behind the homeopathic materia medica, there are 3 important points. That and this philosophy is again correlated with the organon. The philosophy of homeopathy is inseparable from the philosophy of homeopathic materia medica. Just to highlight, there are 3 important aspects of this philosophy of homeopathic materia medica. That it is based upon the holistic approach is based upon the philosophy of individualization, that no two human beings are same. Every human being is different from one person to another person, and therefore whatever medicines we are going to select, it should be according to the same principle, and it should be given on the individualization. And one more important aspect of this philosophy is that the dynamic theory, or the dynamic aspect of this homeopathic mathematics. Out of this, we'll first understand what is the holistic approach of homeopathic mathematics. Now, before going to the holistic approach, I will tell you, you must be knowing there is a story of Akbar and Birbal. I will narrate the story that in Hindi. So once upon a time, एक बार क्या होता है कि अकबर के दरबार में एक शायर आता है, और वो शायर कुछ शायरी पेश करता है, और अकबर बीरबल को पूछता है कि कैसी लगी बीरबल ये शायरी। तो बीरबल बोलता है कि पर बादशाह, मुझे आज जरा माफ कर दीजिएगा, मेरे कान में दर्द था, तो इसके वजह से मैं जो कविता है, जो शायरी है, वो अच्छी तरह समझ नहीं पाया। तो अकबर बोलता है, अरे बीरबल तू क्या ऐसे बेवकूफी जैसे बात कर रहा है कि तेरा कान में दर्द हो रहा है, इसके लिए तुम कविता समझ में नहीं आई, तुम इस शायरी का आनंद नहीं ले सके। तो बीरबल को बहुत उस वक्त अपना इंसल्ट लगता है, एंड देन वी all know that how is the Birbal is a witty person, and then further proves that how illness of a specific part is related with the whole body. And then the story again repeats that एक बार वापस दरबार में सब लोग बैठे रहते हैं, एक महान शायर आता है, और वो जो महान शायर है वो अकबर बादशाह को शायरी सुनाता है। और फिर बीरबल को मालूम रहता है कि आज बादशाह के दांत में दर्द है, तो वो बीरबल बादशाह को पूछता है सारे दरबार में कि यहाँ पना कैसी थी आज की शायरी। तो फिर बीरबल बोलता है कि अकबर बोलता है कि आज मुझे जो शायरी है वो कुछ समझ में नहीं आई, क्योंकि मेरे दांत में दर्द था। बीरबल बोलता है कि ऐसे कैसे क्या होता है, शायरी तो कानों से सुनी जाती है, शायरी तो मन से दिमाग से समझी जाती है, और ये आप क्या बोल रहे हैं कि मेरे दांत में दर्द है, तो ये तो सरासर गलत बात है। तो फिर जाके अकबर को समझता है कि what is the holistic approach. The whole story is some of our holistic philosophy of holistic approach. What is that holistic approach? Is that man as a whole is sick. A part is, if there is any alterations in a specific part, that alteration, that disease is not limited only up to that specific part. जैसे कि पहले हमने देखा कि बीरबल के कानों में दर्द था, इसके लिए उसको शायरी समझ में नहीं आई। बाद में अकबर के दांत में दर्द था, इसके लिए उसको शायरी समझ में नहीं आई। और हर बार वही रीजनिंग रहता है, कान में दर्द है, दांत में दर्द है, उसका क्या संबंध है शायरी का आनंद लेने से। तो वही आता है संबंध कि आपका दांत, आपका कान जो है वो बीमार नहीं रहता है। You as an individual person is a sick, and when you are in a sickness, you are not able to concentrate, you are not able to understand what is going in your environment. This is a small story you must remember to explain about this homeopathic concept. And homeopathy or homeopathic materia medica always see man as a whole. Homeopathic materia medica do not see man in a parts, and it is very clearly evident in our homeopathic materia medica how we are seeing man as a whole. If you open any book of materia medica, you will come to know that there is the initial introductory part which gives us generalized information or the information which is applicable to the whole drug and which is applicable to the whole body. And then there are under certain headings are given, and under that certain heading the symptoms produced on the head, the symptom produced on the eye, symptom produced on the nose, and all the body parts are listed. And then finally there is one more conclusive remark, that is a general modalities and the general relationship. So homeopathic materia medica study man as a whole, because there is in organon it has been very clearly mentioned that whenever a person falls sick, there is also lecture on this topic by Dr. Kent on the heading of the sick. So you read that lecture and you will understand what is the importance of man as a whole. And so therefore whenever we attempt to ascertain the effect of any drug, the same philosophy of the sick is reflected. We don't want to understand the effect of or the pathogenetic effect of a drug on a specific part. We are more interested in understanding this effect of a drug in the whole human being. So I will continue with one more meeting, and then I will take